Hello YouTube, welcome back to my playthrough of Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Trilogy. I hope that you guys are enjoying this part. Let's continue from where we left off. Let's do the first part of the trial now. "8:45 a.m. District Court. I wonder what it's going to be like against Edgeworth, defendant lobby number 3. Good morning, Mr. Wright. Good morning, Ellen. I see you're still wearing your wedding gown, and I will continue to wear it until our marriage is saved. Oh, Soren. Do you think he came to see how she's holding up? Soren, my love, you came all the way to the courthouse just to see me? Oh, Soren, I don't know what to say. Blueprints. Huh? The engine blueprints. I can't find them. Do you know where they are? Oh, they're in your room, third shelf from the bottom on the right-hand side. Ah, I see. Wow, is that really how he's treating his fiancée? He's leaving already? Don't tell me he came just to ask about some stupid blueprints. Is he really that cold of a person, or is that just how he comes off, I wonder? What about me, Soren? Ellen. He's back. Come home soon. I'm lost without you. To Soren! Later. So he's not even gonna be at the trial. Looks like showing your vulnerabilities is the fastest way to capturing a woman's heart. You should take notes on this, Nick. Please leave me out of this. Anyway, it looks like Soren isn't big on words, but it's clear that he cares about Ellen. Knowing that, I actually feel kind of relieved. I feel bad for Ellen. Mr. Wright, I just absolutely can't be found guilty, you hear? Don't worry, I'm going to do everything I can to prove your innocence. Thank you, Mr. Wright. The trial is about to start, sir. Edgeworth. Knowing him, he's not going to yield an inch. So I've just got to fight with everything I've got and save Ellen. September 22, 9 a.m. District Court. Courtroom number 6. Day 1. Court is now in session.
Court is now in session for the trial of Ellen Wyatt.
The defense is ready, Your Honor. The prosecution has been ready for a while, Your Honor.
Seeing so many familiar faces gathered together like this, I feel as though I'm at a grand reunion.
So about the judge, this judge is the same judge that's been in the older games. So he's generally the same judge that's been in all the, Ace Attorney games that take place in America. And so he remembers all the trials from many years ago that Edgeworth and Phoenix had.
It makes me want to go out for dinner and a drink and a reminiscence with all of you.
Oh, that sounds like a great idea. I was dying for a real burger the whole time I was away. We can make it a welcome back party for Maya. How about it, Edgeworth? I have no intention of cavorting with my enemies. Now then, Your Honor, let us start this trial at once.
Oh, still not one for light-hearted banter, are you, Mr. Edgeworth?
Jokes and good humor are beyond worthless in a court of law. Guess we'll just have to have the party started, party without him then. However, word after the conclusion of this trial, I might consider joining you for your little welcome back party. I certainly wouldn't mind an invite, at the very least. He's still as emotionally constipated as ever, I see. And it's Edgeworth's line is he points like that. He does that a lot. But about Edgeworth is we're going to be playing next as him in Miles Edgeworth Investigations, Ace Attorney Investigations. You actually play as him in his own separate game. It's the only Ace Attorney game where you play as a prosecutor.
Now then, Mr. Edgeworth, if you could please go over the details of this case for us.
The victim was Dumas Gloomsbury, a servant in a Sprocket household. He was in attendance at the wedding reception that occurred from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Mr. Gloomsbury apparently felt some animosity towards Ellen Wyatt, and so, a bit after the reception ended at 10 p.m., he assaulted Miss Wyatt with the intent to kill her. The defendant fought back, and ended up killing Mr. Gloomsbury.
In other words, it was just justified self-defense, correct? If that's the case, then the defendant might not be criminally responsible.
He's right. Worst case scenario, I could go for self-defense to avoid the criminal charge. I wonder how Edgeworth plans to counter that, though. The prosecution's first witness will make my view on the matter clear, Your Honor.
Very well. Bailiff, please bring in the first witness.
It's probably gonna be Emma. Yeah, I knew it. It's gonna be Emma. Please state your name and occupation, witness. Ema Skye, forensic investigator. And I'd just like to say, sir, that being in the same courtroom as you is a great honor. Oh, that's right. You're a fan of Edgeworth's, aren't you, Emma? We're good friends and all, Mr. Wright. But just this once, I intend to faithfully and fully testify for the prosecution. And I do mean that wholeheartedly. Heh, I expect no less from you. So Edgeworth is also the most honest prosecutor probably in the entire series, so I know he's gonna be a tough fight, but he's not gonna pull any, cheap crap. Yes, sir, I'm gonna do my very best. Looks like you lost the popularity contest, to Mr. Edgeworth, Nick. Meh, I really could care less. Besides, she'll, see who's the better lawyer once I win this trial. Yeah, maybe then you'll actually really care less.
Now, Detective Skye, if you please.
Rundown of the case. The murder weapon was a clock called the Timekeeper. The victim was hit with it from behind, and he fell over right into the lantern. The defendant was spotted then, standing in front of the body, holding the murder weapon. The victim was struck twice, by the way. He was struck twice, yeah. That's a bit weird. That's right. There's no mistake about it. The first blow was to the back of the victim's head. It was hard enough to knock him unconscious. Yet, despite the fact he had been immobilized by the first blow, the defendant delivered a second, fatal blow to the side of the victim's head. And that's probably what Edgeworth is going to use to argue for murder, because you can't argue self-defense at that point. Which means, what exactly? It means that she hit him, or if that's the belief, that she hit him after he was knocked unconscious, so she hit him a second time, which you can't argue that that's self-defense, because self-defense is basically stopping the threat. Once the threat is stopped, you can't keep attacking anymore. That's not self-defense anymore at that point. Yeah, that's what Edgeworth was going to say that. I figured it would go right over your head. Let's put it this way. By striking the victim a second time, the defendant killed her last chance to escape from any criminal wrongdoing.
She did, but how, Mr. Edgeworth?
The defendant may have been fighting back because she was being attacked. However, she then went on to deliver a fatal blow to a man who was already fully unconscious, yep. Nick, is he saying what I think he is? I don't feel so well. And thus, Mr. Wright, has justified self-defense been removed from the table. The prosecution intends to prove that the defendant killed the victim with murderous intent. Allow me to belatedly submit the victim's autopsy report. Oh god, this is just a giant meme in the Ace Attorney community. This entire case was made for the fans of the original, massive nostalgia. So that's why he was acting all smug, well, more smug than usual. It's fine, right? It's not like we were going to plead self-defense anyway, right? Right, but now the judge has a negative impression of Ellen. He may not get to prosecute much anymore, but he definitely hasn't lost his touch. Edgeworth is the chief prosecutor. Gloomsbury head shows signs of being hit twice. The timekeeper is used as a murder weapon.
Now then, Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination.
Let me look at the autopsy report. Time of death, September 20, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Cause of death, cerebral hemorrhage from a strong blow to the head. One contusion was found on the back of the head and one on the side. The blows were caused by the same weapon. The murder weapon was a clock called the Timekeeper.
Hold it!
Are you completely sure the murder weapon was the Timekeeper? Yes, completely. The shape of the injury on the victim's head matches up with that of the Timekeeper, and it's definitely heavy enough to kill someone with. But would the defendant have been able to pick up and swing something so heavy? I tried it myself, and I was able to lift it up just fine. Maybe you're just freakishly strong. Excuse me, Mr. Wright? I'll have you know that people on the force know me as the dainty forensic investigator. Sorry, but really, you're hardly a delicate flower. Mr. Wright, this is a court of law. Save your antics for after the trial if you know how. Yes, sir. It won't happen again, sir. Moving on. The victim was hit with it from behind, and he fell over right into the lantern.
Hold it!
The defendant was fighting back against the victim, right? If so, wouldn't she have hit him from the front and not from behind? The victim must have tried to run once Miss Wyatt started fighting back. That's probably when he got hit from behind. I see. Thus the blow to the back of his head. The defendant must have looked awfully scary when she was brandishing that clock. I don't know about that. Regardless how scary Anne looked, the victim was definitely hit from behind. May I go on? Yes, of course. Please do. The defendant was spotted then standing in front of the body holding the murder weapon.
Hold it!
But that's only because she was so panicked when she found the body that she tried to use the timekeeper to go back in time.
Objection!
Mr. Wright, do you have any idea how absurd you sound? But Miss Wyatt really believed she could travel through time with that clock. You really should have come up with a more credible story, you know.
Yes, I agree.
Me three, but it's all I've got to go on. Anyway, under the circumstances, the only conclusion we can draw is that the defendant killed the victim. The victim was struck twice, by the way.
Hold it!
Miss Wyatt must have had a chance to escape after she struck the victim the first time. So why would she stick around and hit him with such a heavy object again? Well, about that. Allow me to explain. Why did she strike him again, indeed? To finish off the victim, of course. This very act clearly shows that she had every intention of killing Mr. Gloomsbury. Urgh. But Miss Wyatt would never do a thing like that. Then let's see some evidence that disproves my theory. Urgh. Are you going to stand there and take that from him, Nick? I can't refute his claim head-on, so I'll have to approach it from a different angle. Well, it looks like we won't be going anywhere until we can refute Edgeworth's claim. This is so exciting. We haven't taken on Mr. Edgeworth in ages. Yeah. Okay, Nick. Now go get him. No need to rush me, Maya. Alright. I'd better start by comparing Emma's testimony to the evidence we have, and look for any glaring inconsistencies. Let me see here. I have to look for something that doesn't match up here. The murder weapon was a clock called a timekeeper. The victim was hit with it from behind, and he fell over right into the lantern. Wait a second, the victim was hit with it from behind and fell over right into the lantern, but... If he was hit from behind, this angle doesn't make sense. The angle that he's laying at.
Objection!
Yeah, I'm right. The angle that he was laying at, like he would have been laying at a different angle if he got hit from behind. Detective Skye, I'm afraid I have to apologize in advance. For what? For what? For embarrassing you in front of your idol. What do you mean? If you take a look at this photo of the crime scene, you'll see that the victim is lying on his back, yeah. But if the victim had been hit from behind as you claim, then he should have fallen over into the lantern face down, yeah. Ah. It's not enough to simply take someone's side, Detective Skye, even if it's Mr. Edgeworth's. Ah. Ooh.
There does appear to be a flaw in Detective Skye's testimony.
Mr. Wright, if you think I'm going to just back right down, then you're sadly mistaken. Emma's unusually fired up today. Don't forget, she's in front of her hero, Nick. If the Steel Samurai came to watch this trial, I'd want to do my absolute best, too. Listen, Mr. Wright. It's entirely possible the defendant moved the victim's body after he fell over. In that case, there wouldn't be any contradiction, right? Indeed, that was an excellent counter-argument, Detective. You can count on me, sir. So, what do you have to say to that, Mr. Wright? Is it possible the victim's body was moved after he fell into the lantern? The flowers, no, let me look at the history, yeah, the flowers, it's not possible. Sorry, Detective, but there's no way that the victim's body was moved after his death. Oh, really? And what makes you so sure? One look at this here and it should become obvious. What proves the victim's body, had not been moved? These flower things, they're the petals on the flowers. Yeah, there's those, and,
Take that!
what exactly are you pointing at, Mr. Wright? Oh, this right here.
What you're trying to communicate is not obvious at all, Mr. Wright. But this penalty should make my feelings on the matter pretty obvious, even to you.
Oh, hang on. What proves that the victim's body had not been moved? Then it's gotta be this wooden thing here. It's on top of him here.
Take that!
Those broken bits of the lantern? Yes, if the body had been moved after the fact, these fragments would have fallen off of it. But as you can clearly see, they're lying perfectly undisturbed on top of the body. This means the victim must have been lying face up, from before the lantern even broke. You're right. But wait a minute. If that's true, then when was the victim killed? Good question, Maya. I mean, the lantern was still whole during the reception, right? Right, which means we just overturned a major assumption about this case. If the victim was already dead before the lantern was even broken, then the body must have been inside the lantern since before the reception started. In other words, the defense asserts the victim was killed before the wedding reception.
What?
In short, when Miss Wyatt was seen standing in front of the body after the reception, it wasn't the moment just after the murder was committed. It was the moment she happened to discover the body, just as Miss Wyatt claims. Ah.
Objection!
Whether the act was committed before or after the reception is entirely inconsequential. No, I think it matters a lot now, Edgeworth. After all, it was the defendant who prepared the reception hall for the event in question. Therefore, when the murder occurred changes nothing with regard to her guilt. She could have killed the victim before the reception, as you claim, and then tried to hide his body in the lantern after the event ended.
Objection!
Sorry, but that doesn't make any sense. I mean, where would the body have been hidden during the reception in your scenario? That's... Even you have to admit, Mr. Edgeworth, that this has opened up a new possibility. Do explain, Mr. Wright. Well, if Miss Wyatt didn't commit the crime in the reception hall, then that means someone, somewhere, put the victim's body into the lantern.
I suppose that makes sense. A dead body couldn't have just put itself in there.
Exactly, Your Honor. In other words, if the murder actually occurred before the reception, it opens up the possibility that he was killed somewhere else, the defendant didn't do it, he was killed some other way. No, he was killed somewhere else. If the body was hidden inside the lantern, then it's possible that the body was moved along with it from somewhere else. Oh, you're right. You can run that mouth of yours all you want. But do you have any evidence to support what's coming out of it, Mr. Wright? Of course I do. I think the answer lies in that piece of evidence, and in something that was left at the crime scene that will point us to where the victim was really killed.
Very well, Mr. Wright. In that case, what proves that the lantern and the body were moved from somewhere else?
The cargo hold, look. It's in there, it's in the cargo hold. You see the two lanterns standing there. The victim's body was found collapsed inside one of the peggable lanterns. Scattered around his body were flower petals, a note, and broken parts of the lantern. The petals were from flowers not found inside the reception hall. There we go. That's the proof.
Take that!
The photo of the victim again? Yes. I'd like the court to focus on this thing right here. The flower petals.
Take that!
Flower petals, Mr. Wright. These petals are from a kind of flower that were not present in the reception hall. This means they must have gotten into the lantern when it was somewhere else. And just where do you propose this somewhere else to be, Mr. Wright? The cargo hold. It's the cargo hold. I propose this piece of evidence will tell us where the flower petals came from. Right here, guys. My camera's blocking it. Let me move. Look. See that? You see the flowers right there. And you see the two lanterns on the left side? He was killed in the cargo hold. That's where he was killed. Photo of the hold, stealthily taken by Larry. Ellen can be seen near the center.
Take that!
Please take a look at the flowers in the picture of the hold. Notice how their petals are of the same shape as the petals in the crime scene photo.
Yes, I see. They do look to be from the same kind of flower.
Objection!
Is that really all you've got? A flower is a flower. They're all the same. I would hardly call what you presented compelling evidence.
I'm afraid I could disagree with you more, Mr. Edgeworth. I gave a flower of this type to my lovely wife once when we were young. So I can assure you that this is a very meaningful and compelling evidence indeed. The soundness of my judgment in this matter is backed by nothing less than pure love.
But, Your Honor, let it go, Mr. Edgeworth. It's clear you don't know much about flowers. It's not like you have anyone you'd actually give any to, after all. Maybe you should study up on them, just in case the opportunity presents itself. This from the man who only knows the names of 3 types of flowers. That's hardly relevant to the case at hand. The defense asserts that it's highly probable that the victim was killed in the hold. If the body was then placed in the lantern and moved up to the reception hall for some reason. It would completely destroy the prosecution's case. Then you mean the body was... Yes, the victim's body was... inside the lantern during the entire beautiful wedding reception. While the defendant and her betrothed were celebrating their love.
What?
Objection!
Your smooth talk might work in his honor, but it won't work on me. What are you talking about now? Take another look at all of the evidence, and you'll soon see what I mean. I wish he would just tell me already. Detective Skye, I'm sure you've already figured out what I'm talking about, correct? Of course, sir. Mr. Wright is the only one here who hasn't. Why don't you leave this to me, Mr. Edgeworth? Very well. Let's see what you can do.
Detective Skye, please give your testimony to this court.
What's the testimony now? The prosecution's rebuttal. The victim could not have been killed before the reception. The autopsy report states that the estimated time of death was after the reception. And that estimated time of death is correct. There's no way it could be wrong. It's clear Mr. Gloomsbury was killed after the reception. And that completely contradicts your claim. But my theory is, I think that everybody on the airship was in on it. I think that they made a second wedding on purpose just to trick Ellen. So remember how nervous they were to talk about it in the house? I think they did a second wedding reception. That's what I think. I guess so. Tell me you took at least a cursory glance at the autopsy report, Mr. Wright. That's definitely a reference to the older games. It appears you've grown rusty since our last outing. Might I suggest you go back and brush up on the basics? Sure, though I must say, you're as cocky as ever, Mr. Edgeworth. I beg your pardon? What are you trying to say, Mr. Wright? I'm just saying that I'll go back to basics. That's what Mr. Edgeworth wants. I'll prove how badly he underestimated me with a good old-fashioned cross-examination.
Very well. Let's see you put your money where your mouth is, Mr. Wright.
The prosecution's rebuttal. The victim could not have been killed before the reception.
Hold it!
You sound pretty certain. You must have some solid grounds for making that claim, right? Of course I do. And you're going to feel silly when I show you what they are. Ready? Feast your eyes on this. The autopsy report states the estimated time of death was after the reception.
Hold it!
I've read the autopsy report too, you know. Then you don't need me to explain it to you, right? How there's no way the victim could have been killed before the reception, I mean. Detective Skye, I think you've overlooked something big. I have. Why don't you take another look at the evidence? But I've already looked at all the evidence. And quite carefully, too, I'll have you know. Detective Skye, do not be taken in by his verbal antics. He is simply bluffing, as always. Right, sir. And that estimated time of death is correct. There's no way it could be wrong.
Hold it!
Is it possible that the culprit did something to obscure the real time of death? No, not in this case. There was no snow or anything to keep the body from decomposing. And there's no fridge on that airship big enough to fit a body into. So you've already checked into that, I see. It all comes down to the estimated time of death, doesn't it? Couldn't the killer mess with the victim's time of death by keeping the body in ice? Yeah, if they had the means to. The prosecution is treating the estimated time of death as an absolute. But is it really? I take it you don't think it is, huh, Nick? In that case, we're going to have to find a way to convince them otherwise. Yeah, there's gotta be a way somehow. Okay. We have to break this autopsy report, this time of death. The victim could not have been killed before the reception. The clock in there is pointing to... It's a little hard to see, but it's... Looks like it's 10 or 11 o'clock that it's pointing to. What are they saying in the...
Hold it!
Let me see what she says again.
Hold it! Hold it!
Of course I do. Okay. 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. And what time was the reception? Okay, I'm gonna have to save here. This is hard now. I think it's that clock in the reception. Let's see if I'm right on this.
Objection!
No, damn. Skip this is wrong, yep. Okay, skip through this.
Objection!
No, it's not that too. Okay. I'm gonna have to try to break that autopsy report. Something's not right here.
Objection!
No, two. Damn. Okay. This is the hardest part of the case right now. Is this is the hardest part right here. This is trying to figure this part out here. It's something we have to figure this out. The autopsy states that the estimated time of death was after the reception. Something's not right. Something's not right here. Don't know. This is a hard one. Dry ice. Could it... The fog machine. Dry ice. I wonder. Unlike regular ice, dry ice doesn't melt into a liquid as it warms up. Instead, it converts directly back into its gaseous form in a process known as sublimation. At minus 109 Fahrenheit, dry ice is also significantly colder than the 32 Fahrenheit surface temperature of regular ice. It's even colder. It's this.
Objection!
I was right. I admit the estimated time of death does contradict my theory. Finally, and that means your theory that the victim was killed before the reception is still entirely plausible. Huh? What makes you think that? The killer could have falsified the time of death by using a certain item in the reception hall. Please take a look at this. And what is that contraption, Mr. Wright? So yeah, so I don't know too much about dry ice, but I just wanted to Google it just to be sure. But the fact that it's negative 109 degrees Fahrenheit. Damn. That's extremely cold. If you put a body on that, that would delay the autopsy report. That would delay the time of death. You wouldn't be able to tell when the person died. And what is that contraption, Mr. Wright? It's a fog machine, Your Honor, used to create a special romantic atmosphere in the hall.
And this machine could have been used to falsify the time of death?
Yes, Your Honor, because this machine uses dry ice to perform its magic.
Dry ice? Ah yes, the super cold stuff commonly used to make theatrical fog, right? I see. So you're claiming that this dry ice was used to keep the body cold?
Oh. In that case, I guess the victim could have been killed before the reception. Okay, so we've changed the time of death. We're on the right track now.
Order! Order in this court! Well, Mr. Edgeworth, what do you have to say about this development?
That the victim was killed in the hole before the wedding reception. The prosecution acknowledges the possibility of this claim. Now we're getting somewhere. The prosecution would also like to thank you, Mr. Wright. Huh? For what? I didn't know how a certain piece of evidence fit into this case. But now, thanks to you, I do. What piece of evidence? Oh, he's talking with the picture. To get into the hold, one needs a key card like this one. And here we have a record of those who entered the hold with such key cards. Yup, Pierce Nickety. Pierce Nickety, I thought he was the killer, and it turns out I'm right here. So Dumas Gloomsbury is the victim, Ellen Wyatt is the defendant, Pierce Nickety, I'm pretty sure, is the killer. The times aren't specified, but these are the last 3 entries on the day of the murder. And as you can see, the last person to enter the hold that day was the defendant. What?
So the one who moved the body out of the hold must have been...
That's right, it was none other than the defendant. A record of the key cards used to access the airship hold. Yep, it was Pierce Nickety. Hey Nick, take a look at this entry record. There are a couple of other names on here besides Ellen's. Hey, you're right. According to the entry record, Mr. Edgeworth, Pierce Nickety had also gone to the hold. Isn't it possible that he could have been the culprit? Sorry, but Mr. Nickety was escorting a few of the guests at the time. I'm sure they would be happy to testify to that fact if you'd like. Think me cocky all you like, Mr. Wright, but my confidence is rarely misplaced. Now then, it's probably safe to assume that after killing the victim in the hold, the defendant moved his body into the hall in order to dispose of it discreetly. What do you mean by discreetly? The defendant volunteered to take care of the reception's cleanup personally. That means she would have had the chance to dispose of anything in any way she wanted, including taking the lantern off the airship without raising any suspicion. Don't tell me you didn't know about Miss Wyatt volunteering for cleanup duty, Mr. Wright. Right, she did. For my last task as servant of the Sprocket household, I offered to take on the preparation and clean up the reception banquet. I see. Ah. Look at you, sweating buckets like a rookie, even after all these years. Nevertheless, thank you for proving that the only person who could have killed the victim in the hold is Ellen Wyatt. Ah! Great job, Phoenix. Now we're back to square one. Heh, perhaps you should ask Miss Sykes for some help in reviewing the defense for dummies. Way to go, sir. You've got Mr. Wright in a cold sweat. I wonder if maybe the promise of seeing that miserable look on his face is what brought me back to the court today. It certainly made all of my stress and woes as chief prosecutor just melt away. I guess he had a lot of stress built up. I'll give him something to stress over before we're through today. Your Honor, the prosecution asks that you render your verdict this time, before that man over there tries to throw the court into chaos with his meaningless bluffs.
I see. Mr. Wright, are there any last meaningful bluffs you'd like to present to this court?
Why does he have to assume it'll be a bluff? Nick, hurry up and throw a good one out there. I will. Well, alright then. Let's see. I've got it. How do you know it was Miss Wyatt who used her keycard? After all, if it turns out that somebody else used her keycard, it would mean Miss Wyatt didn't do it. That is a good point.
Interesting. And are you able to prove this bluff to be true?
I assure you I'm not bluffing, Your Honor. Well, now what? Wait a minute, Nick. I can think of a certain somebody who might have used Ellen's keycard. You can. Remember? The one who was sneaking around the hold in spite of not being a family member? Oh, great. And we're gonna get Larry accused now. Oh, that's right. Your Honor, the defense would like to call a certain witness to the stand. Oh no, not Larry. I need a testimony of this person who may have entered the hold with Miss Wyatt's card. Larry, an old friend of mine and aspiring picture book author. As we used to say, when something smells, it's usually the butts. So about Larry... That's your witness? He's gonna get pissed. Are you saying that numbskull was on the airship? So about Larry is gonna be really annoying to cross-examine because he always talks a lot of nonsense. He's been a witness in several murder cases before. He never breathed a word about that to me. That's not surprising because Mr. Nickety told him to keep quiet about it. But Mr. Butz himself admitted it to me. He claimed to have found a way to sneak into the Flying Chapel's hold to see Miss Wyatt. This photo he took and gave to me as proof. Then was it he who moved the lantern with the body to the reception hall? You know as well as I that with him anything is possible. And this is one possibility we should definitely look into. I can't believe this. What in the world is he doing mixed up in this? Come on, Mr. Edgeworth. Remember what we've been saying since elementary school. When something smells, it's usually the butts. Exactly. Ah, that Larry, he'll pay for this. He's pissed. Well, if you want to extract your payment now, he's right up there in the gallery. Yikes.
Bailiff, seize the witness before he makes a run for it.
No! Why does this stuff always happen to me? Sorry, Larry, but you brought this on yourself.
Let us break for a 15-minute recess. I ask that both sides prepare for the next witness's testimony during this time.
District Court, Defendant Lobby number 3. Wow, it's been a while since I've had this much fun and excitement. A face-off against Mr. Edgeworth, harrowing tightrope walk for the defense. Ooh, I'm exhausted already. Boss! I'm here for moral support. Athena, are you all done practicing for Trucy's magic show? Well, to be perfectly honest, I sort of ran away. But that's because she was putting my life in danger, I tell you. I see. I think I'll need to have a one-on-one with her. You're really athletic and fit, Athena, so Trucy probably thinks he can run you ragged. That may be true, which is why not even Trucy can keep up with me when I run at full speed. Ha, looks like you spoke too soon, Athena. Never underestimate the resourcefulness of a great magician. Huh? Trucy's here. Magical girl Trucy Wright is on the scene. No! Now, Athena, it's time to practice human combustion magic. Go on, douse yourself in this gasoline. But don't worry, it's a magic trick after all, so it's perfectly safe. Run away! Hey you're not getting off that easily. Haha, they get along so well, don't they? It reminds me of the good old days. You, me, and Pearly. Oh, and Detective Gumshoe, can't forget him. We had all kinds of fun at the crime scenes back then, remember? Leaving me to do all the serious investigating, as I recall. Court will soon be back in session, Mr. Wright. Right, thank you. So Larry's the next witness, right? I can't wait to see what happens. Sadly, I can already imagine it. It's gonna be a disaster if Larry testifying. It's gonna be a disaster. September 22. District Court. Courtroom number 6.
Court will now reconvene.
Nick, Edgy! The two of you are gonna hang me out to dry, aren't you? No, not the both of us. Just Mr. Wright. Nick, how could you? I don't really think he did it, of course, but I've gotta use whatever leads I can. Mr. Butz, there's a possibility you moved the lantern that had the dead body in it. So if you want to clear yourself of any suspicion, all you have to do is testify.
Now then, your testimony, please, witness.
Oh, this is gonna be really ridiculous. He always says nonsense. Nick is a jerk face. That's the name of this testimony. Nick, you big fat stinking jerk. How can you doubt your best bud? We've known each other since elementary school. Well, get this, pal. Our friendship's over. That wasn't a testimony.
Well, go ahead, Mr. Wright. He's all yours.
Why me? You're the one who called him to the stand, so he's your responsibility. Thanks, old chum. You can't any of you show me a little respect, even just a shred?
You may cross-examine the witness, Mr. Wright.
I would if there were any testimony to cross-examine. Nick is a jerk face. Nick, you big fat stinking jerk. Come on, Larry. Can't you please give me something real to work with? Don't think I don't know about your tricks. If I say something careless, you're gonna shove some evidence at me with a loud...
Objection!
And a super smug look on your face. Yeah, well, that is my job. And if I get found guilty, how are you gonna take responsibility for what you've done? Why should I take responsibility for just doing my job? You heartless jerk, don't you have any compassion for me? How can you doubt your best bud? We've known each other since elementary school.
Hold it!
I'm sorry, Mr. Butz, but if it wasn't Miss Wyatt that entered the hold with that card, then you're the most likely suspect. Nick, are you seriously doubting the innocence of your old childhood friend? Well, technically, yes. But it isn't personal, I assure you. Oh, a true friend would believe in me no matter what. Can't you see my tears? Don't they mean anything to you? Nick! Nick! You don't really think you can cry your way out of this, do you? Okay, fine. In that case... Well, get this, pal. Our friendship's over.
Hold it!
Larry, listen to me. Just shut up. I'm not talking to you anymore. This is getting us nowhere. Come off it, Larry. If you don't quit fooling around and start testifying, Miss Wyatt will be found guilty. For real?
If no new information comes out of this cross-examination, then yes, Mr. Butz, for real.
The judge says for real, too. Not that I would have a problem with that myself. Larry, just tell us the truth already. Did you or didn't you go into the hold and move a lantern up to the reception hall? I never moved any bull lantern, I tell you. Bull lantern? What? Did I say something weird? Broken lantern. Pegable lantern. You told me that you didn't attend the wedding reception. Can you believe they told me only family and relatives could attend? They wouldn't even let me into the reception hall. Yeah, so what? Then that's odd. No one in this courtroom ever mentioned the sex of the lantern that was moved. So how could you know that it was a bull lantern? Yep. You didn't have to actually go to the reception to know that. Anyone could tell they were two Pegabulls by looking at the Flying Chapel's pamphlet. No. All I can tell right now is that there's a strong scent of bull in the air in here. No, the pamphlet. Pega Cow Lantern and Pega Bull Lantern, see? The pamphlet says so. Please add that last statement to your testimony, Mr. Butz. Anyone could tell that there were two Pegabulls by looking at the Flying Chapel's pamphlet. No?
Objection!
I want you to take a look at this, Mr. Butz. Because unfortunately for you, the pamphlet clearly shows a Pega Cow and a Pegabull in their example diagram of the reception hall. Huh? But on that day, instead of putting a Pega Cow and Pegabull out for the bride and groom, there were two male Pegabulls on display. Yet somehow you knew there were two Pegabulls in the reception hall that day. There's only one way you could have known something like that, Larry. It was you who moved the Pegabull to the reception hall, wasn't it? No. Larry, you didn't.
Mr. Butz, did you move the lantern containing the victim's body to the reception hall?
That's what it looks like. What? Wait, Nick. You don't think I'm the murderer, do you? Maybe you and Mr. Gloomsbury were fighting over Miss Wyatt and you ended up killing him. Maya! Not you too! Look, I did sneak into the reception, but that's as far as it went. You know me, I wouldn't hurt a fly. You snuck into the reception? Yeah, sure, but some of the Sprocket men caught and locked me up in one of the cabins. It was pretty awful, actually. But that's when I made that drawing of the pterodactyl I showed you, Nick. Nay on the Aerodactyl day, Larry.
Mr. Wright,
Not even you would take this farce that far, would you? We are talking about Larry. What do I do? Do I accuse Larry of being the true culprit? No, of course not. Larry isn't the killer. There's no way, no. No, you're right, Mr. Edgeworth. Mr. Butz didn't have a reason to kill Mr. Gloomsbury. He might have had an imaginary reason to kill Sar and Sprocket, sure, but not Mr. Gloomsbury. After all, he did steal Mr. Sprocket's bride and tried to elope with her. Just because I tried to steal somebody's bride doesn't make me a murderer. I believe you, Larry, and I don't think you killed anybody either. You would never do anything like that. Nick, old buddy, old pal. I knew you'd come through for me. Funny that, considering you swore your sworn testimony just now, that we were through.
Mr. Butz, it's time you told this court the whole truth. Understood?
Okay, please, tell the truth finally, Larry. Moving the lantern. It's just like Nick said, I'm the one who moved the lantern. I was poking around the reception hall before the main event and saw a lantern was broken. There was a note on it that said, exchange with the one in the hold, Ellen. So I decided to do Ellie a favor.
So you switched the lanterns before the reception, did you? Then that means the victim really was killed before the reception.
The lantern in which the victim's body was found, Larry wheeled it from the hold to the reception hall before the reception began. It would appear that Mr. Butz completely fell for the defendant's scheme. Scheme? What scheme? Oh god, he's gonna accuse Ellen of writing that note to manipulate him. This note from the defendant. Exchange with the one in the hold. Ellen. Mr. Butz moved the lantern with the body in it up to the reception hall because of this note. And thus, he has become a suspect in Mr. Gloomsbury's murder. Oh, that second lantern did feel pretty heavy. But I never would have thought that there was a dead body in it. What was a note like that doing on a lantern in the first place? You got it all wrong, Mr. Edgeworth. I left that note for myself. It was simply a reminder because I can be very forgetful.
Objection!
What a sorry excuse, Miss Wyatt. The prosecution contends that this note shows one facet of the defendant's murderous plan. And you, Mr. Butz, you played right into Miss Wyatt's hands. No way, Edgy. I don't believe it. Do you still really believe Miss Wyatt to be the culprit, Mr. Edgeworth? Of course. My stance on the matter remains unchanged. If you think I'm wrong, then prove it with your cross-examination. Gladly.
Very well. Mr. Wright, you may cross-examine the witness.
Moving the lantern. It's just like Nick said, I'm the one who moved the lantern. Why didn't you just tell us that sooner? Yeah, because I knew you guys were gonna be suspicious of me, that's why. We're suspicious of you now because you tried to hide it. My thoughts exactly. Well, now I've told you. Happy? So how about letting me go? No, not yet. We need you to stick around to sort a few things out. Fine. I was poking around the reception hall before the main event and saw a lantern was broken.
Hold it!
The lantern you swapped out was a female Pegamoo, a Pegacow, right? Yeah, I guess. Why did you replace a female lantern with a male one? Because I was too busy trying not to get caught. I didn't have time to check for little details like that. If you didn't want to get caught, you could have just left well enough alone, you know? Whatever. Anyway, when I took a look at the broken lantern I saw, there was a note on it that said, exchange with the one in the hold, Ellen.
Hold it!
That note wasn't addressed to you, was it? Well, I guess not, but How could I let my dear sweet Ellie do all that hard physical labor on her own? It's precisely that thought process that constantly gets you in trouble, Larry. Besides, it was, my big chance to show her how much I cared about her. So I decided to do Ellie a favor.
Hold it!
Nobody saw you the whole time while you were switching the lanterns? Nope, I didn't get caught. Not that time anyway. Not that time? Yeah, when I tried to sneak into the reception hall the first time. I didn't have as much luck. Those sprocket guys spotted me and nabbed me. All of my words are failing me right now. Pretty exciting, don't you think? Larry, you need help. And then they locked me up in one of the cabins. Nick, what are you asking about stuff like this for anyway? Shouldn't you be trying to prove Ellie's innocence? Well, is that statement of his important to the case? It's important. Mr. Butz, trying to crash the reception and subsequently getting locked up in the cabin. I believe these might be important facts in this case, Your Honor.
Very well. Mr. Butz, please add that statement to your testimony.
I tried to sneak into the reception hall, but I got caught and locked up in a cabin.
Hold it!
So you got locked up, then what happened? I broke out. Then I started looking for Ellie and wandered into the reception hall again. That's when I saw the broken lantern, and replaced it. Even after they caught you and locked you up, you still went looking for Miss Wyatt. But hold on a minute. What is it, Nick? Maya, something seem weird to you? Larry's saying he replaced the lantern after he broke out of the cabin. That's right. Oh wait. Huh. You're right. Doesn't make much sense, does it?
Mr. Wright, have you found an inconsistency in the witness's statement?
Yes, I believe so, Your Honor. Mr. Butz moved the lantern after he broke out of the cabin, but that contradicts with this. Yeah, the pterodactyl.
Take that!
And in what sense does this piece of evidence contradict with that statement?
Doesn't contradict it at all, does it? Indeed. Urgh. Oh, don't mind me, Your Honor. It looks like I just made a tiny mistake, that's all.
Hold it!
Let me see what it is here. So you got locked up, then what happened? I broke out, then I started looking for Ellie and wandered into the reception hall again. That's when I saw the broken lantern and replaced it. Wait a second. He replaced the lantern after he broke out of the cabin. I see it now! Oh my god, how did I not see this before? I'm stupid. The lantern was broken when she was cleaning. After the reception. Wait. The whole timeline is screwed up. He replaced a broken lantern? What?
Take that!
Is that?
Yes, it's the broken lantern, Your Honor. Mr. Butz, what you're saying doesn't make any sense at all. What? Why not? You swapped the lanterns before the reception began, right? Yeah, that's what I said, isn't it? But you also just said that you swapped the lanterns after you got locked up in a cabin for trying to sneak into the reception. In other words, you're saying you swapped the lanterns both before the reception and after the reception took place?
That certainly doesn't make any sense, does it? Mr. Butz, did you swap the lanterns before or after the reception?
Which was it, before or after? There's a world of difference between the two. Well, Mr. Butz? I guess I can't expect guys like you to understand. In a nutshell, it was both before and after the reception. What? What? I tried to sneak into the first reception and got locked up. The first reception? Uh-oh, I don't like where this is going. Then, through the power of Ellie's pendant, time got rewound, and we went back to the time before the reception. It was after that when I replaced the lantern. So it was both before the reception and after the reception. Get it? What? We went back in time before the reception. So of course the reception would take place one more time after that, right? That's why what I said makes perfect sense. Mr. Wright, what in the world is the witness talking about? Has he developed some sort of intellectual ailment I'm not aware of since I saw him last time? Well, none of the sprockets seem to remember the time skip, but I do. And Ellie remembers it too. I think the power of our love for each other made that miracle happen.
Mr. Wright, I'm sorry, but could you please translate this man's gibberish so the rest of us can understand?
So now I have to be the one to explain about the whole time travel thing. Go on, Nick. I know you can do it. Looks like you don't have much choice, Nick. Heck with it. I can't lose any more of my dignity today anyway. The defendant, Miss Ellen Wyatt, has told the defense the following strange story. She said that after the reception ended, she was attacked by Mr. Bloomsbury. She claims that as she was being assaulted, she made a wish upon her pendant. Please, take me back to that blissful moment. In doing so, time apparently wound itself to just before the reception began. It what? I know it's hard to believe, but think about it this way. Through the power of the pendant, both Ellen and Wyatt and Larry Butz experienced time travel.
What?
I still don't believe there was actual time travel. I think it's all a trick.
Objection!
What absolute rubbish. Mr. Wright, I've heard my fair share of nonsense over the years. But this takes the cake. Have you thoroughly lost your mind?
Objection!
But this is simply the conclusion I came to. Using that logic ability you love so much. What? The truth of the matter is, the future president of Sprocket Aviation, Sergeant Sprocket, has been researching time machines. So what if a time machine has already been successfully created? And what if that's one of the Sprocket Aviation's top secret inventions?
A time machine?
Yeah, I even saw something while we were time traveling. I saw a pterodactyl flying through the sky. Maybe the airship was set to travel through the time for their honeymoon.
What? Of a pterodactyl?
Objection!
You can't possibly have any evidence to back up your ridiculous time travel story. Well, as I thought. In any case, I now have the evidence to prove that you're no more intelligent than Larry. Not so fast now, Edgy. I'm not the same old Larry you used to know. Oh? You want evidence? I've got your evidence right here. What's this? This is a photo I secretly took of the first reception. What? 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 He had that the whole time and he didn't even tell us? So this is what I mean that Larry's annoying. Larry, I can't believe you. Well, anyway, good job. If we compare the photos of the first and second reception and can find a difference, then we'll be able to prove that the reception was held twice.
But do you really think such a difference exists?
Yes, Your Honor. I just need some time to find it for you. This is preposterous.
Very well. Please show the court what's different then.
This is proof positive that the wedding reception was held twice. What proves that 2 wedding receptions took place? The flowers are different. The flowers are different. Yellow flowers, red flowers.
Take that!
Please direct your attention to Miss Wyatt's bouquet of flowers. In the photo one of her in-laws took, the defendant is holding a yellow bouquet. But in the photo Mr. Butz took, she is holding a red bouquet. You're right. That's impossible.
What does this mean?
It means the defendant really did experience 2 wedding receptions. And she did that when she traveled back through time.
What?
Nick, you did it. You proved Ellen's time travel story to be true. Yeah, I can hardly believe it myself. Just as Ellen said, the reception was held twice. This turns every assumption we've based this trial on upside down. I refuse to accept such a ludicrous argument. It is pure fiction under the guise of pseudoscience at best. There is simply no such thing as time travel. I know it's hard, but can't you suspend your disbelief for 1 nanosecond, Edgeworth? I bet sci-fi movies push all your buttons the wrong way, don't they, Mr. Edgeworth? I can totally picture you yelling, "That never happened," every 5 seconds to the screen. Maybe you should stay away from movie dates altogether. That's neither here nor there. This is real life we're talking about.
But the proof is clearly shown in the 2 photographs.
That's right, Mr. Edgeworth. No matter how inexplicable... Fine, I'll entertain your absurd delusion. If only to demolish it before your very eyes. What? Let's start with this then, shall we? There's one thing your time travel theory fails to explain. And that is the memories of the other guests there. The defendant and Larry remember the reception occurring twice, but no memory of the Sprocket family has, even mentioned such a thing. That's because the time machine is classified I'm not done, you bird brain. Bird brain? As I was saying, if the entire family had been sworn to secrecy, then why hadn't they sworn the woman who was marrying into the family to secrecy too? That's a good point. Honestly, all it takes is a little common sense, Mr. Wright.
Even still, how do we know that the trip through time did not really occur? There is proof in the photos that it did, and besides, if time travel doesn't exist, well, I'd be a little disappointed, frankly. I was hoping to go back to the days of my youth.
You mustn't allow yourself to be taken in by Mr. Wright's whimsical tales, Your Honor. I've read about it in various literature, you see. And they all say that time travel is just not logically feasible. Maybe your argument was just a little too nonsensical, Nick. Well, in that case, why don't we put common sense to the test? Excuse me? The wedding reception was held twice. Photos are proof of that. But it wasn't because of it wasn't because of time travel. It's simply because the reception had actually been held twice. Yep, like I said. Isn't that the most reasonable way to interpret the situation?
Would you care to elaborate, Mr. Wright?
If time travel doesn't exist, then there's only one way to make sense of what happened. Somebody must have orchestrated this strange phenomenon, and that somebody is... everyone at the reception, Gloomsbury, the gods. The gods. Oh my god. Everyone at the reception. So, like I said early on, that everybody's in on it. That's the only possibility. What if all the guests at the reception conspired together to hold the reception twice and keep quiet about it? What? And for what purpose would they conspire to do such a thing? Well, who's that? Ha ha ha! Brilliant deduction, defense. I can tell that you are not a renowned, I can tell that you are not a renowned lawyer for nothing. I must say, I underestimated you. How so, Mr. Nickety? You have managed to name each event precisely as they happened. You have revealed it all to the light of day. Then that means... It was us. We orchestrated the whole thing. Yes, the reception was held twice. I knew it! But not because of time travel, no. We simply held it a second time. What? Why? Why would you do such a thing? To make it as though the murder Miss Ellen committed never happened. Master Soren figured that if Miss Ellen, who'd killed Gloomsbury after the first reception, experienced the reception one more time, she would think it was all a dream. It was he who ordered us to make it happen. However, only a few, myself included, knew of Miss Ellen's crime.
Are you saying most of the guests attended 2 receptions without knowing why?
Indeed. They needed no reason. Master Soren told them to do it, and so they did it. That is the Sprocket way. Then who hid the body in the lantern? We did. But we did not anticipate the petals finding their way in, nor the actions of Mr. Butz. And that's how you intended to cover the whole situation up. But what about the pterodactyl? There is this one thing everyone here has wrong. The real scene of the murder was not the hold. It was the Vista deck. What? Then Miss Wyatt's recollection of the events must be correct. I admit we tried to cover this incident up. But the fact that Miss Ellen killed Gloomsbury is undeniable.
This is quite a turn of events.
No, Pierce is the killer. Pierce is the killer. And so it appears we have arrived at the truth at last. So, a lot of you guys have told me in the comments that this case isn't really great, but isn't really bad either. But I actually think this case is great. I'm liking this case a lot so far. Now, please do feel free to travel back in time, Mr. Wright, and attempt to do this trial over again. Go on. Let's not get hasty, Edgeworth. I bet you can't do it. I bet I can't either. Your Honor, we will have to hold a separate trial for the cover-up conspiracy later. But as far as this case goes, I believe we are ready for your ruling.
Objection!
Just before the defendant lost consciousness during her attack, she said she saw someone strike the victim. It's possible that this third party is the true culprit.
Objection!
You still want us to believe the defendant's words. Perhaps you lost more than your touch during the time abroad. This third person nonsense is nothing but rubbish, and you know it. But by that same token, how can we trust those who conspired and lied to fool this court of law? That's a really good point. That is. For all we know, they might still be hiding something. You never know when to quit, do you? That's true. That is true. That's a good point.
Now, calm down, both of you. In any case, there isn't enough trustworthy information yet for me to render a verdict. I suggest we continue the trial after both sides have investigated the matter further.
Very well, Your Honor. Whew, that was close.
Mr. Nickety, as for you and your cohort's attempts to cover up this crime, your case will be brought to a separate trial following the resolution of this current one.
Understood, Your Honor.
Well then, this concludes today's trial. Court is adjourned.
Now, here's what I think. My theory is, I think that Pierce was the one who did it. I think he is the killer, and I think that he's lying about this whole thing. I think he's doing what Pierce is doing is, he's doing the same tactic that Luke Atme did. So, for people that don't know who Luke Atme is a killer that was in the original Ace Attorney trilogy. Phoenix also took him on, and what happened was, he admitted to a separate crime. He admitted to a theft. And the reason that he admitted to a theft is so that he could not be placed at the scene of the murder. That's why. So he admitted to a lesser crime so that he couldn't be placed at the scene of the murder, which he committed. And I think that Pierce is doing this exact same tactic. I think that Pierce is admitting to this cover-up because it was eventually going to come out. Like, Phoenix was on the right track and it was going to come out, and I think he's admitting to it just so it takes suspicion off of him being the killer, so that he's instead charged for this crime, but he's not charged for the murder. That's at least my theory. As to why Pierce killed Gloomsbury, I have no idea. That I don't know, but I'm like 95% certain that he's the killer. So thank you guys for watching. Hope that you guys enjoyed this part. I'll have the next part for you guys as soon as I can. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.